Oh, good evening, everyone. I don't know about you, but this weather out here today, it went from sunny to it was going to storm. But look, as Annie said, the sun will come out tomorrow. Actually, it came back out today. But welcome to the Women's Leadership Forum. We've got a lot to discuss here today. So I want to tell you just a little bit about the platform, tell you about who I am, and then we're going to get to the heart of the matter because this is one of the topics. Oh, I love this discussion when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we want you to get involved. So if you're on Facebook or if you're not YouTube, but if you're on Facebook, you can chat with us. And we want you to chat with us. You can find us um, through the website, which is forwardwlf.org, or you can find us through our hashtag forwardwlf. So, who am I? My name is Colette Coakley, and I welcome you all here to this platform. We're the Forward Women's Leadership Forum. I am the Vice President of Human Resources for Maryland Public Television, and I welcome you all here to this platform, to this tribe, to this collective, to these women who are here to encourage you to be at your very best and do you, but do you at the height of you, right? Not way down here. We want you up here. So whatever it is that you want to do, we're coming here to encourage you to be at your best, to do your best. It's your thing. Do what you want to do. You only have one life to live. So why not live it to the fullest? Yes. And if you have not figured out what that thing is, right? If you haven't figured out what that thing is, we have women here who can help you, counsel you, lead you, walk along with you. All you have to do is to reach out and say, I want. Can you show me how? And then we will direct you to people who we believe can bring you where? Forward. We're going to keep using that word because it is a powerful word. We don't want you to stay in place or march to the same beat. We want you to excel and run as hard and as fast as you can to get to where you want to go, where you want to go, not where I want to go, because where I want to go might be different than where you want to go, right? I might want to go to the moon, and nobody's trying to go with me there. But you may want to just be the president of the PTA. You might want to be a community leader. You might want to go to the next level in your job, but you can't figure out quite how to get there. We have women who have sound counseling and sound mentorship and sound experience. There's nothing like a good old experience where they can walk alongside you and lead you and guide you and ask you those big questions that help you to move it forward. So our collective, let me just tell you, there are 2,100 women that are now in our collective tribe. Oh my gosh. So if you can't find one, you're going to go try the other. If one doesn't suit you, then somebody else might suit you. If one is not in your lane, you might find somebody else. But we're the resource. We're the resource, and we want to be there just for you. Now, we had this big event that occurred in March, Women's International Month, and it's going to go on again because guess what? The crowd said, do it again, please. Do it again, please. And not only are we coming back to you in 2022, but we've started some mastermind classes that not only deal with business, we're going to deal with marriage, we're going to deal with making money. We are going to be here for you. And before you know it, as we grow, you grow. Wherever you go, we're gonna grow. Okay, I just made that up, but we're here. We're here for you, and I want you to know that. Now, the person who's kind of giggling at me, with me,
all of the above.
She wasn't ready. She wasn't ready because She was all serious before. She had a whole lineup of things that she was going to say and do and everything. But let me introduce you to Miss Desyree Dixon of Bolton Therapy and Wellness. Let me say, welcome.
Thank you.
I wasn't feeling too hot the last time that we had her scheduled here today. But I was so disappointed even in myself because I wanted to have this conversation badly.
Well, we're having it now.
So now we are here together, and today our topic is going to be on diversity, equity, and inclusion. But before we get started, let's talk about credentials. Now, I don't know if we have enough time here to talk about all these credentials that this lady holds, but I'm just going to tell you two. She is a founder and she's a CEO of Bolton Therapy and Wellness. Okay? And with that, I'm going to let her unfold all of that greatness that she has. Welcome once again.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you. How do I follow that intro?
I'm your hype woman.
All right. So again, I am Desyree Dixon. I am the founder and CEO of Bolton Therapy and Wellness, an award-winning group practice here in Baltimore. I am a trauma therapist, providing individual, couples, and family therapy to the folks here in the Baltimore metro area. I'm also a member of the inaugural Trauma-Informed Care Task Force for Baltimore City, the first of its kind in the country. I am a trainer, a motivational speaker, a consultant, and a coach. I work with individuals, organizations, corporations, schools, university, anyone who needs help in employee mental health, workplace trauma, team building, and organization and leadership management. That's my background. A little bit more personal. I was born and raised in Kingston, Jamaica. I moved to New York at the age of 13, attended Georgetown University and the University of Maryland School of Social Work. In my previous career, I was an HR consultant. I am now, again, a trauma expert. I have been working on creating, we'll talk a little bit more about that, the framework for trauma-based identity dysmorphia and dysphoria to address identity-based trauma. I'm also a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert, as well as a change point expert. All right, I think we're done now, Colette.
Okay, so if you didn't get all that, you definitely could connect with her on LinkedIn. We got people in the chat that's already from your credentials said, oh, we need to connect. We need to talk.
Let's do it.
So we want to make sure that we get everything out there and get you connected with our audience. So let's get started with some definitions, right? All right. Because everybody that purports to be the DEI person or says that they know a little bit about DE&I really may not know. Okay.
Right.
And no fault, we are all here to learn, right?
Right.
So let's give some definition around diversity, equity, and inclusion. What are those things? What are those things?
So let's first break it down individually. So diversity is the presence of differences that may include a number of different, what I've named core identity factors: race, gender identity, religion or religious commitment, sexual orientation, ethnicity, nationality, socioeconomic status, language, ability, age, or political perspective. Essentially, populations that have been and remain underrepresented among practitioners in our field and marginalized in the broader society are folks that are a member of what we call the diversity, right?
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about equity, right? There's a difference between equity and equality. And I saw a great infographic.
Yeah.
I brought it with me. I don't know if
Is
you're
it the one with the boy or the man? Yes.
Right?
That's a pretty popular infographic.
Absolutely.
For those of you who don't know, what we're talking about is like they're looking over a fence.
Baseball field, yes.
Yes. And there's crates down on the bottom.
Yep. And essentially, equity is promoting justice and fairness within the procedures and the rules and the process in how we distribute resources by institutions or systems, right? It's tackling equity issues requires an understanding of the root causes of the outcome disparities that are within our societies. And I think most folks, I'm going to use the term during our conversation today and in follow-up conversations, majority culture people or person and minority culture people or person, right? So most of us who are members of the minority culture understand exactly what the difference is between equity and equality. It's folks who are part of the majority that needs a deeper understanding of that, giving equality when the root causes of the disparities have always been unfair does not equal the playing field, right? So we'll get into that. We'll get into that a little bit deeper. Inclusion, that is the outcome to ensure those that are diverse actually feel and are welcomed in the organizations, in the groups, whatever the situation is that we're creating, right? Mm-hmm. Inclusion outcomes are met when we in our institutions and the programs that we're developing truly are inviting to all. So there's another infographic that I found that's a great descriptor. So exclusion, if you think you've got a group of marbles, so think in the center, you've got a bunch of white marbles, right? And then on the outskirts of that, you've got marbles of all different color. Obviously, that's what exclusion represents. Now you've got integration, where you've lined up the white marbles on the center, and the marbles of color are just surrounding the parameter, right? That's what integration look like. True inclusion is where all of the colored marbles are fully dispersed.
All
over. So in terms of diversity in thought, diversity in ideas, diversity in makeup, socioeconomic status, age, political views, you name it, all across the board is represented equally, equitably among all the folks that are involved in the decision making in that institution or in that program development.
Okay. Let me ask a question here.
Yes.
So it's not just talking about Black folks. It's not just Black Lives Matter.
Although that's included, right?
Although it's included, it's not just.
Absolutely. It's way deeper than that. Again, because it includes all of those groups and more, right? You can add immigration status to that. There are tons of different viewpoints that are identified among what I call, again, the core identity factors, okay? All of those include, whatever the race is, whatever the ethnicity is, all across the board is included in that conversation. So it's not just about Black and white, right? It's brown folks, it's Native American folks, it's folks from all different backgrounds that are included in the conversation and the decision making, right? Essentially, it is what is indicative of our society, true collective of what our society looks like, not just the privilege, whether it's by wealth or education or whatever the status might be.
We're not just talking about a segment.
Exactly.
Okay.
Precisely.
So let's dig into the trauma part.
All right. Great segue.
Okay, bring that together with the diversity.
So my signature talk is masquerading as myself. how identity-based trauma shows up as imposter syndrome. So many folks, one of the initial questions they ask me, Colette, is what does trauma have to do with DEI, right? So let's first define for the folks that are watching, what does identity-based trauma mean? Identity-based trauma is when we have suffered a trauma or a series of trauma based on any of those core identity factors that I named: race, gender identity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, immigration, religion, culture, you name it. The list goes on, right? Any point in our lifetime. So whether it's in childhood, in schools, that's one of the first and most prevalent places that a lot of folks, when they come to me for therapy, talk about a lot of the ways that they don't feel comfortable in their skin, right? We talk about code switching, right? Us folks, we know how to do that. We know how to show up. It's like 5 different people in one. There's the person that we show up at work as, right? There's a person we show up with our friends when we out, hanging out Friday night. And then there's the person at church on Sunday, right? There's that person. And there's just a person when we're just at home with ourselves or with our family, right? All of that, all of those different identities are how we have adapted to the society that we live in, that sort of has forced us to segment how we behave based on what is deemed appropriate or according to majority culture, right? And so
I want to just hone in on that for a moment, because this is like the Women's Leadership Forum, although what you're talking about applies to men also.
Absolutely.
But women talk about this a lot.
Yes.
The whole imposter syndrome.
Yes.
They talk about it a lot of who they are, what their identity is. And people don't always understand what it is they're talking about, particularly if you're telling that to a man. They don't understand. Like, what do you mean you feel like 3 people in one? What could that possibly mean?
Yeah. So that's a great point. I mean, most of my clients are women, right? Women of all diverse backgrounds and mostly professional. But that's basically the conversation, that they have felt like society have forced them to show up in a way that doesn't represent their true self, right? Hence the idea of masquerading as myself, right? Who am I? Who is my true self? Who is, of all those people that I'm showing up as at work, at church, with the friends on the weekend, with the family, who is my true self, right? And that way of showing up is traumatic for the spirit, because when you're thinking about in terms of developing relationships, right? It impacts our ability to develop relationships, because we can often be in situations where we're not feeling like confident, right? And so like, well, I think this is the person who is best going to connect, or this side of me is what may appeal best to this person, right? If we can overcome that in a way that all of the systems that we are engaged in at work that create a diverse enough environment that we're accepted. A friend of mine recently posted, we've got a group chat going, and she posted a meme. It said, it was a Yoda meme, and it said, friends tell me, show up as myself. We need you to be authentic at work. And the response was, why? So I can get fired? Right? Right? That's the belief that if we are our true selves, that person is not going to be accepted. And so we continue with the facade, but that facade gets exhausting. It's exhausting. Yeah. Right? And we're asked to do it. And I think most folks don't understand, especially majority culture, that the world revolves around them. They're not asked to adapt in any way, right? The world is their oyster, and they're not aware. So part of what this idea of DEI conversation is about is helping folks even the folks who are woke, we still can be a little bit more woke, but just to understand conversations I've had with folks who've talked about what some of the roadblocks are in terms of what keeps this conversation from moving the ball forward is when you'll hear majority culture folks say things like, it's too confrontational. I don't know how to start this conversation with people of color. It's confusing. I don't understand what the definition is. I don't understand what's expected of me. There's no clear path ahead. What is it that I'm supposed to do? Right. Well, or let's just start with a training program and see what happens. Right. And oh gosh, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I do the wrong thing? And what if people think I'm XYZ? Right.
Or they're too sensitive.
Yes. Yeah. And this feeling that exposure feels like too much. Like, oh my God, it's the end of my career if I say the wrong thing. Because we see how it is on social media. You try to make a point, and God forbid, if you make the wrong one, the mob mentality will come for you, right? And so,
or the fear of being canceled out, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So this idea of this imposter syndrome, especially by us women, and let's talk about race and being women. And so the women of color, that's a whole separate, and Black women, that's a whole separate conversation in terms of what we have to endure in the workplace, in society, in our communities, in our families. But that's a later discussion. We can get deeper into that.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I want this audience to know. We are starting this discussion, and you're going to have to tune in to keep it going. So, Desyree is going to appear every fourth Wednesday in the month. Now, in order to keep it going, we want you to continue to tune in and join in this conversation. So somebody said, Consuelo said, okay, saw a great TED Talk on this topic. Jody Ann, if I'm saying Beret, the myth of bringing your full, authentic self to work. I think I saw that TED Talk too. It was powerful.
Yeah, so I haven't seen it, but I can just imagine what it said, right? Yeah. Because it is a myth. It's a myth for most women of color. Like it's a myth. It's a myth for most that are not a part of the majority culture. I mean, and that's the reality of it, right? But the goal is to keep the conversation going, because I think there's some key benefits that are continually missed on diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation. I'm just a great Forbes article I found list quite a number of them. I'm going to pick out some of the key ones. It's a long list, but I could pick out some of the key ones, like inclusive companies. And these are concrete facts, Colette, that they've found. These are not just someone's opinions, that inclusive companies are more likely to hit their financial goals, right? Diversity equals excellence, right? If you're a company that values that, and what does it mean to value that? We can talk about that in a later conversation, but it starts with the executive level leading by example, not simply being passive aggressive and saying, I'm going to rubber stamp this program, go ahead and do it. It means the executive level looking diverse, right? It starts from the top. The important folks that are making those decisions looking like the very thing that they're trying to promote, right? DEI helps employees feel safe, respected, and connected. Okay. Diverse teams innovate faster, right? If you can show up as your authentic self to work, if you can show up and you feel like you don't have to, bring only part of you to work, imagine how much more creative you can be if you feel like your ideas are respected and your ideas are going to be included. Of course, you're going to bring your best self.
So, right? So let's talk about some truths here about having these programs at work, where 9 times out of 10, the CEO is Caucasian. Okay. And what their concern is is the bottom line. I think sometimes where we get stuck in programs of diversity, equity, and inclusion is that we throw up a training program or we throw these things, these terms out there, and CEO wants to know exactly how is this going to make me more money or more widgets, more or seen in the community better. And they're looking for the relationship, not just the feel good, because the feel good is temporary for them. So they'll say, oh, yeah, right? The feel good is temporary. But how do we end up saying this is going to translate for you? It will translate for you. We're not just talking the talk. How is it going to translate that diversity, equity, and inclusion is going to affect that bottom line?
Absolutely. So we can do a deeper dive and break that down in another conversation. But in a nutshell, diversity, equity, and inclusion, genuine, like not just the rubber stamp. When you're genuinely invested in that, you will, first of all the money that you spend hiring, recruiting, and all of that, you can retain your best staff. If your staff that you've hired, that you've spent, looking at the dollars, how much money you spent to bring them on board, if they feel psychologically safe at work, if they feel included, if they feel heard, if they feel seen, you're going to get the best out of them. Right now, with all of the work from home, right? Being able to foster a culture, it's important that some of these aspects are involved because they're at home already feeling ostracized. If you don't have a culture that includes a very robust, diverse, DEI strategy, you're losing people. And there's burnout that's happening. So one, from a productivity standpoint, they're losing money. And two, in terms of recruiting and retaining the best staff, innovation, just bottom line. I mean, there's tons, and we can do a whole segment just talking about DEI for the workplace and the benefits, but in terms of the dollars that they're spending to constantly bring more staff in, when the staff comes, doesn't feel good, and they're gone to another company that's wooed them away, and they're feeling more appreciated elsewhere. That is the issue. Bottom line, how often are you spending recruiting and then having to retrain folks, right?
And let me just back up a little bit of what you're saying, because even in my experience, okay, leadership is not just dictating. It is not just dictating. It is being inclusive of thought and voice and a person, right? And even in the last, let's say 6 months, we MPT heightened our surveys, and the results are this: we appreciate your asking in the surveys how we feel. Which to me indicates people want to be included, despite who they are, despite I'm Black, or I have one arm, or I am LGBTQ. They want to be included and have their voices heard.
Absolutely.
And so the whole marble example is important, and it's a beautiful example of what it means to include people into the fold and be genuine in that.
Yes. And the benefits of that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk, obviously this is a conversation that we'll continue to talk about, but we'll talk next time about the intersectionality of all three, right? What creates winning? Like, too much equity and diversity and not enough inclusion, what does that look like? And too much diversity and inclusion and not enough equity, what does that look like? And too much equity and inclusion and not enough diversity, right? So there's a winning strategy of balancing all three of them, right? And we'll talk about that.
That's some good stuff. That's some good stuff. Okay, so we cut. I hate this time thing, but I got to get in one more question,
yes,
and that is, I'm priming the pump here. I'm priming the pump because the articles that have come out recently say it can be very discouraging. It can be very discouraging because there was a wave that was being written, and the wave started with George Floyd. Well, it happened way before that, but the height of it was George Floyd, and then many things to follow. Where companies said, we must do something. We must get on this bandwagon, and we're going to contribute, and we're going to have new slogans, and we're going to support Black businesses, and we're going to be, we're going to raise our fists along with our brothers and sisters out there. And the survey says only 1% really are doing anything. They really are doing it. They hire, quote unquote DEI experts. And I'm not saying, because you are the professional. I'm not saying you're one of them. Don't get me wrong. But they hire professionals, and sometimes it's just a feel good, right? And that actually worries me from an HR standpoint. Are they going to have a job, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? So is this just hype? Is it hype? Was it hype? How do we dig deep?
That's a real question. That's a real question. The issue is anything that companies are invested in, right? They want to see an immediate payoff, right? And so one of the things that people have to understand about diversity, equity, and inclusion, this is a long-term investment, okay? You've got to put the leaders in place, the diverse leaders. You've got to put the diverse ideas in place. You've got to do the work and then give it time to watch the fruits. It's not going to happen after a year.
No.
Right? It's going to take longer than that. It took longer than a year for us to get to where we are. Right? And so the investment.
Our systems that need to be broken down and broken apart. Yeah. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, it's not a quick fix. Not a quick fix, Colette.
Yeah, and I think I shared with you that I really didn't want to lead in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because I'm old. I'm trying to figure out what lifetime is this happening in. Because there is so much to be broken, broken down. Was I in for that? What did I want to be on the periphery, or do I want to be deep in it? And it's really hard. It's really hard. It's not easy work.
And as a member of the organization, it's hard as someone who's a member of that diverse group that I named, that fit in, in terms of minority culture person, to then be able to lead the organization while you're still experiencing, your own stuff within the organization. I think I heard lots of folks that happened to, they pick someone in the organization of color and said, okay, great, you go ahead and lead this. Well, what if that person has got their own stuff going on? How do they then separate what they're experiencing and help the organization move forward in the strategy? It's difficult to separate the two. So
okay. So there's some chat going on here, right? Yeah. Where we've got people saying, okay, I think we're talking about allyship or accomplices, right? We had this discussion at work. You have to support them. Marcia is saying you have to support them when you put them in place, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Support the the strategy, and also support the folks that you've put in these roles, right? Again, but that goes back to, is this a genuine desire? Has leadership truly bought into the idea that a diverse, equitable, and inclusive organization is going to impact their bottom line? If they haven't fully bought into that yet, again, because leadership may be white and they've not experienced what it's like to not, the company is doing well, the company is making enough money. And so it's, the idea is like, well, if it's not broke, why fix it? Right? But this is long term. People are more aware. Younger people are making decisions now, right, about what companies they're going to work for based on how well they're implementing these strategies. So if you're not part of that group, if you're not part of that 1%, you're going to miss out on the best and the brightest because they're going elsewhere, because they don't trust you with their career, with their mental health, because you're at your job 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And if they can't trust that you value them, they're going elsewhere.
I was going to say, like, the key word is like the values aren't lining up. The values aren't lining up. And so, I said Consuelo, but I'm going to say Sway. Sway said, what scares her is that this might be only a moment, and it should be a movement, right? It should be a movement, but it's so hard. She and I work in the same industry, right? And so what's difficult is we're constantly explaining it. We're constantly explaining it and don't feel like we're getting anywhere. It's like, you keep butting your head up against the wall. You keep butting your head up against the wall. And it's just like, do you want to understand? Do you want to even understand it? Or it wasn't window dressing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the tough part.
Yeah.
The difficult part is deciphering if the organization is truly committed to this, right? And I think, as a therapist, I think fundamentally most people mean well, right? But I think when we fall short is, one, for two reasons, because we're not really directly affected or impacted by this. And so it's hard to truly appreciate, you've got to be a special kind of person to be able to say, okay, this isn't affecting me, but I still have the ability to value this because these people who I know, I see how we've had conversations. They've explained to me, and I believe that they're impacted by this. And so this is important to me, not because it's impacting me personally, but the people who I care about, right? So that's one.
The empathy gene.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes. If you're lacking that, it makes it difficult, right? And then the other part of it is, if you aren't leadership, if you're middle management, right? And you're afraid, for whatever reason, you are afraid of losing something, whether it's power or status. There's this fear like, oh my gosh, if I start hiring all these folks and these folks are doing things, does that mean that I get overshadowed? Does that mean that I get put to the back burner? How does that impact me? So the empathy gene, as you call it, and fear are two of the biggest roadblocks that I've seen in organizations to continuing this discussion, right? But one of the things that I try to do is to help even those folks who are coming from a place of fear understand where that fear is from. Is it based on lived experience? Is it based on biases, implicit biases that they have, this idea of something happening that's not real, but something they've seen in media, news, elsewhere, right? Let's get to the origin of that fear, right? And figure out how to address that so we can get those folks in. Because it's not just us woke folks that's going to be able to move this needle forward. Because those folks who have not bought in, they're impacting these strategies as well. And so for us, we've got to give grace to those who have not yet joined us and continue to have the discussion. And it's painful and it's annoying. And for many folks of color, it's like, it's not my job to teach them. But
and it's tiring. It's tiring.
It is. But if we don't continue to have the conversation and keep it in the forefront, who's going to do it? Right?
Yeah.
So hence what you said, Colette, the movement continues.
Yeah.
The movement continues.
Yeah. And you know, I don't want to gloss over the fear part, because we had, and I'm not trying to get political here, but I really do believe we have 4 years of fear.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We have 4 years of fear, and we saw it in action. We saw what happens when people are fearful for whatever reason, and they do everything that they can to protect that territory or their goal or their thoughts and their desires. They do everything that they can to protect those things.
And so again, that's exactly the point. And that's why the discussion has to continue in helping them to understand that those fears, now there's some folks, and we've talked about that, Colette, there's some folks who we're not gonna be able to bring them in the fold. And we just have to accept that, right? Yep. They've got a point of view that they are wedded to, and they're not letting it go, right? So those folks, we just gotta let them go, right? Mm-hmm. But there's still some folks that I believe, based on the work that I do every day individually and with families and couples, that I believe there's some folks who just don't quite get it, right? Mm-hmm. And they're afraid to have the conversations because, again, they're afraid of being alienated. They're afraid of losing ground, or you know, even not just in work, even in our communities, right? They're folks who, they're neighbors who want to have these conversations and feel like, I don't want to, you know, this is where I live. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want any trouble, any issues. So I'm not even going there, right? And change happens when we know people, like real people, and we're able to see the impact on their lives, right? Mm-hmm. You know, if you grow up in a community that's majority culture, and you don't ever engage with anyone minority wise, and you don't see or be able to experience their lived experiences, you don't know.
You don't
know, right? And so it's important to keep the conversation going, to help these folks understand that their lives isn't indicative of everyone else's, and to help them understand the origins of some of these disparities. Like, these folks out here are not just not achieving because they don't want to achieve, is because of these systems that needs to be dismantled to help these folks believe that there's a possibility, right? That they can show up to work and they can be appreciated. They can show up to different, you know, institutions, you know, government institutions, organization, and not have to deal with certain, you know, certain issues. I mean, we won't get political, but yeah, people just need to feel like there are people out there who care and will listen and not continue to get, you know, feel that sense of hopelessness and helplessness. That's a lot of what I deal with every day. Folks who are just like, you know, the assault on their soul every day as a person of color is just, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. Yeah. And it's not just going to the store and, you know, whatever. It's in the job where they feel like, gosh, I'm tired of saying the same thing over and over. Nobody's listening. And now I'm getting upset, and I'm the angry Black woman, and I'm this and I'm that, you know? It's exhausting.
Okay. Now, I want you to round this out, because we can't end on it's exhausting. Okay. So we can't end on that. We're supposed to be encouraging, right? So let's not end on that note.
Absolutely.
Give us some words that keep us moving forward, right?
Yes.
Moving forward and fighting the good fight.
Right. So we're having a discussion, right? Things might not be changing as quickly as we would like them. But I know folks, you know, I know plenty of good people who are invested in this and are committed, and change is happening, right? And so that's a good thing, right? But in terms of our daily lives, there are things that we can do. We have a sense of resiliency, that a belief that things can and will change, right? Here we are. I think for many folks, 4 years ago, couldn't have imagined us being here. Is it perfect? By no means. The struggle continues, but without that hope, we couldn't get here, right? We couldn't get to this place. And so we've got to continue to be resilient through it all, right? The biggest thing I say to my clients is finding joy. How to find joy in your everyday lives. I'm going to say that every time we meet. This is about being able to tap into that joy. What is it outside of all the negative things that we're dealing with? What are those small things, big things that bring us joy? Is it our family? Is it our friends, hobbies, spending time, being a part of communities, self-care, all of that? What is it that brings us joy? Because this life that we're living, you talked about it at first, is this is it. We don't get a do-over, depending on the religion that you believe in, right? That's a separate conversation. But as far as we know, this is it. And so we have got to do what we need to live our best life, to be able to show up as our best self, right? And that includes our ability to continue to build joy and resiliency each and every day. And we'll talk more about how to get some tools to do that. But that's key. That's key. That's what keeps us moving forward.
Woo, Desiree, you sound like more than once a month. I don't know what we're gonna do about that.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. But what I do want to say is this: some of us experience small wins, and we're looking for bigger ones. So we're looking for a huge movement to happen overnight. I'm going to encourage you to celebrate those small wins.
Absolutely.
You're going to have to, it's like, biting that, how does he say that? Biting that elephant? No. One bite at a time.
Yes.
One bite at a time.
Yes.
Y'all know what I'm talking about. One bite at a time. This is something that's huge, and it's been systematized and it's been going on for years and years and years. Yeah. And to think that one session, one conversation, one trainer, one thing is going to turn, a company's corner, we would be fooling ourselves. And that's why it's important not to be tired.
That's right.
Because you're going to have to go in every day and face that music and explain yourself, explain what's happening, give some definitions, answer the question why, and say why not, and put some money to it, explain why it's going to work. You're going to have to do that.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Doesn't everybody get this?
Exactly.
Everybody is not going to get it. And it's going to take some proving and a whole lot of foot stomping and a whole lot of, what do they say? Grit, resiliency, grind, everything, bravery,
courage,
compassion.
Yes.
What'd you say?
Courage.
That's what I was looking for. Courage to step forward and do this work, because it's not easy. It is not easy. And getting in a circle, and there will be some tears shed.
Yeah.
Because you're not always going to get your way or get what you want.
Yeah.
It's going to take time. We're talking about changing hearts and minds.
Yes. Lee said steadfastness. Yes.
Ooh.
Yes. That's it.
Ooh, yeah. Yes. And look, some faith.
Yeah.
You're going to have to throw that in there too.
Okay.
So let's throw that in there. We're going to have some faith too.
Yeah.
And so here's what we're going to leave with. Well, first of all, I'm going to thank Desyree for this conversation. I think for what we had going on here.
Thank you.
Woo. Oh my gosh, I'm hot. What's going on? The fan is blowing and I'm hot. But we're going to have to continue this because I think it's important, not just for women, but just the conversation in general to um, keep it moving forward.
Yeah.
That is not just a moment. And in order for us to do it, we're going to have to encourage one another. And this is the spot, ladies. This is the spot where we do encourage you to keep it going, to get in more information, and guess what? To get ammunition, because Desyree is providing it. She's providing some of that language, some of that.
Got y'all.
Yep. Huh?
I said, I got y'all.
Yeah. Okay. She's telling you, I got you. And she's going to help us to go into those bosses, to go into our managers, to have more resiliency so that we can do the work that we were meant to do.
That's right.
So with that, I'm going to say thank you again to Desyree Dixon.
My pleasure.
Bolton Therapy and Wellness. Again, you can hook up with Desyree on LinkedIn. She'll be glad to hook up with you. And for those of you who want to see more, let us know that you want to see more, and then we're gonna have to figure something out, because this conversation is rich, and this conversation is what, look, it lights my flame. And to know that you all want it and are invested in it just makes me want to have bigger conversations. So with that, I need to tell you all about what's coming up next. I just you got me all hot and bothered here. Let me tell you what's coming up next. On Friday we're bringing back Dr. Harris. Woo! Dr. Heather Harris. And she has another conversation with somebody special. We're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about this person's role as they are taking on a DE&I role that they just received, okay, for the University of Maryland. I don't know if we're going to talk more about DE&I, but knowing me, we'll get there. But we're going to have some more conversation on Friday at 6:00, and then we're back to Monday, and I got something a little bit more relaxing to talk about since it's the holiday. All right. And then I want to tell you all about this mastermind class that's coming up. Let me tell you about it. Let me find it first here. Stay with me. Stay with me. Stay with me. Okay. Yes. No. Is that it? No, that's it. That's not it. What am I doing? Okay, I can tell you off the top of my head. June the 10th. June the 10th. Not Juneteenth. June the 10th. We are going to have a mastermind business course. And it's a half-a-day course. It's $99. For those of you who are thinking about starting a business, or you in the middle of your business and trying to get more going on, you're going to want to be here, because we have some experts that are going to do what, ladies? Move your business forward.
Okay.
Forward. So you're going to be able to ask your questions. You know that we're interactive because you can see us here today having chit chat with you. It's a virtual class, half a day. And I'm promising you, if you come at 12 o'clock, I got something special, because it's also Founders Day. So I've got something special in that first hour, and then you got 4 hours of getting that business moving forward. So I'm inviting you all to come back. This is the platform. We're here for you. We're here to encourage you. We want you to move forward in everything that you do. So I look forward to seeing you on Friday. And then again, we're going to welcome Desyree back here at this platform so we can have some deep discussion. All right, you all continue to be safe and keep yourselves well. And we will see you Friday. Take care.
Take care, ladies.